The piece that I chose as my example this week is Colin Cowherd's, one of Colin Cowherd's Blazing Fives. This is a segment that he does during the NFL season where he will break down the matchups of 4 or 5 football games, and he'll give you his analysis of the matchup and who he thinks he's going to win and why. I think this piece is effective because Colin, in my opinion, is one of the best in the business of breaking down matchups and giving you his analysis. But he does it in an entertaining way. He keeps it short to the point. When you have 5 minutes to cover that much material, he really does a good job of condensing everything you need to know into that time frame, but also keeping your attention. And that leads me to why I think this is a good example of of broadcast writing. Because as we've learned this week, you're writing to the listener. You have to keep your sentences short. They have to be concise. They have to be to the point. And this is something that, again, Colin does very well and effectively in this piece. So that's why I chose this piece as my example.
So now that I've given you an example of what I thought was a quality broadcast writing piece, it's now time for me to go over what I think are the top 10 qualities of an outstanding broadcast writer. So here we go into the list. Number one, very important, is excellent knowledge of the English language and grammar. This goes whether you're writing broadcast or you're writing print. Nobody likes to read or hear bad language or bad grammar. So it's very important that the writer has excellent knowledge of both. Number two, good storyteller. Whether you're writing an opinion piece or a highlight, being able to tell a story is going to be very important because we're writing again for the listener and you have to be able to keep the listener's attention. So being able to tell a good story is important. Number three ties in with number two, the ability to write for the listener, not the reader. You have to keep your thoughts short, concise, to the point, but you have to write in an entertaining way because you have to be able to keep the listener's attention. So that is very important as well. Number four, writes in the present and or active tense. This is important, especially when we're doing highlights, because it really kind of puts us in the moment and it adds that sense of urgency to the highlight piece or to the opinion piece, if that's what it is too. Being able to understand and write in those tenses is important. Number five, avoid the use of cliches. We had an assignment this week where we had to rewrite a script getting rid of cliches. Cliches, they're the crutch. I like what that said in our assignment. The crutch of sports fans and certain sports broadcasters. We need to eliminate those. Number six, knowledge of the subject matter. Whether you're writing for yourself or you are writing for a broadcaster, it's important that you show and display knowledge of the subject because you want to portray them or yourself as an expert. You have to be able to know what you're writing and what you're talking about. Number seven, meets deadlines. This is important across our industry. Things happen fast in sports. Highlights are constantly going to be needed, updated. So being able to meet the deadline, very important. Number eight, excuse me. Number eight is provides the pronunciation for difficult or foreign names. I think that being able to do this is kind of one of those value adds for the broadcaster. If you're writing for a broadcaster or for yourself, it's important that you know how to pronounce those names. So this is one of those added pieces. Number nine, ability to write conversationally. Again, it kind of maybe ties in with number two and number three, but again, we are writing for the listener and it has to be conversational. You have to be able to keep that listener's attention. So this is really kind of a vital piece to the puzzle as well. And finally, number 10, writes clear and concise thoughts. It is important, again, writing to the listener. You have to keep the sentences short, but you also have to make sure that you're getting the point across so that the listener can understand what you're writing.
So now you've seen my top 10 list of my what I feel are qualities of an outstanding broadcast writer. Here are some examples of how I feel Colin used some of my qualities. One of mine was knowledge of the subject matter, and it was evident throughout the piece that Colin was very knowledgeable of these matchups. You can tell he's passionate about the game, specifically that Patriots matchup when he was talking about the over/under, and he talked about that matchup and why he felt the Patriots were going to win. Another one of mine is being able to write and speak conversationally, and I think Colin does a great job with this. Again, throughout the entire piece, you could tell. But I'm going to point as an example again back to that Patriots game when he opens it and he says, "Do I like the Patriots? I love the Patriots." This class we've been taught to write like we speak, and there's an example of Colin doing that. Another one of my attributes is the knowledge of the English language and grammar. And Colin's a professional. Rarely do I hear him misspeak, or when it comes to grammar or language. And throughout this entire piece, you can see that on display as well. So that's just some of the ways that Colin took what are my attributes and put them into his show.